does a lot of building for investors, flippers, or anybody that is looking to make a quick dollar. We try to vet our customers as much as possible. It doesn't always work, but we do, because we want to create housing units that people are going to live in and stay in, and it's not a transient. That's another important aspect of creating what I consider to be a strong neighborhood feel. The next slide is, if we can go one back, if you don't mind. Oh, sorry. Yep, right there is a SketchUp of the actual elevations. One thing that we as a builder and developer, being both, we have an opportunity to create housing units that are specific to the light or to the site limitations. And with infill developments, there's always certain limitations and characteristics that we have to convert into opportunities, is the way I look at it. And our housing styles and designs are conducive to the limitations that were reflected in the lots. And then the end result is creating beautiful streetscapes, which is what I feel it will be the end result with here, and we'll be developing another beautiful community. The other note that I want to provide with the streetscape, it gives you a good representation of how the massing of the houses will look on flanking on either side of the street. And of course, I want to make sure we note that internal to the site, we have a sidewalk, which is going to be a connecting pedestrian ability to Sideroad 19, which has a beautiful sidewalk that can lead all the way to the commercial businesses and the different plazas that are available. The next slide, if you don't mind. Well, this is a good example of our raised bungalow design. And why we chose this plan or this type of plan is, for one, ease of entry. It appeals to a large market segment, whether it's an empty nester, move down buyer, or a first time buyer, or it's a nice diverse plan. And what's unique about it is with taking into consideration the grading and the fabric of the land and the way it's being developed, it gives us an opportunity for what we call a lookout lot. So there will be tall, large windows in the lower ground level areas, which is conducive to possibility of creating accessory dwelling units or extra bedrooms if people would like them. And what I like about this plan too as well is it comes with a loft area. So it can be bought with a loft or without the loft. So once again, you can size up or size down your housing in accordance to the market needs and financial aspects. So that plan is successful. And of course, we're always going to be bringing in a lot of our building science measures for our homes and our wall assemblies for energy efficiency. And that's always an important criteria with what we do. And if we can go to the next slide there, Val, if you don't mind. It's a good representation of our townhome units. We've been really successful with this type of unit for a couple of reasons. One, we always flank the ends of our townhome units with bungalow units, which are highly popular and interest to the marketplace. The bungalow unit is a 1,298 square feet and 2-bedroom, and I actually had a call about it already from a client that was considering what opportunities they had within it, and this model would have fit their needs perfectly. The internal units are important too as well. They're about a 1,623 square foot 2-story unit, and a signature to all of our internal townhome units, we try to set them up so that there's access to the rear yards. Why that's important is everybody can enjoy what we call a freehold living. You have your own lot, you have your own home and property. It's for you to use the way you want. It's not, I'll call it, burdened with an easement or anything for rear yard access. It's directly out from your garage into your rear yard, just like any other freehold home, which I think is an important criteria, which lends itself well to the type of condominium that we're asking this to be, which is called a vacant land condominium. And so the only shared, I'll call it common areas, of course, is our common amenity area, streetscapes, street lighting, and of course, aspects of the stormwater management pond and maintenance of the street, which is the best way, in my opinion, to keep costs for the condominium down. So that's That's how we've approached many of our condominiums, and they seem to be quite successful. The next slide, if you like. Val, the landscape plan, I just want to make sure that we have an understanding that I understand and respect the fact that the property does have some mature trees, but they're trees identified as, I'll call it planted trees. They're not like a natural wood lot, or they have grown, they are big, they are nice, but they're not irreplaceable. They are. And we have the landscape plan. We've done a tree preservation plan. We've created a landscape plan that is for developed from compensation. We fully landscape all of our stormwater management ponds. And if you've seen some of our past developments, I really feel that they're an enhancement of nature towards the community and become focal points for a lot of opportunities. And hence, that's why we spend a lot of effort and time and money to get them to be looking the way they are as a natural fieldscape, but also taking advantage of the fact that we are creating a naturalized environment similar to what is existing there now, if not an improvement to all the different various animals and critters that might enjoy that area. And the last thing I'd like to mention about the landscaping is a developer that does not prefer to build board-on-board fencing. I do not want to turn my back on the community, and most of my communities have always been addressed with a form of living fence. And if it's not fully living fence, then it's oftentimes integrated with what we call a page wire fence or a farm fence, if you can imagine that detail, and augmented with living material, living plants. I think that's important for privacy, for long-term longevity of defining that property limit, but yet also taking respectful opportunity to create housing, or sorry, landscape features that are going to be shared by all and benefit all. The next slide, Val, if you want. Obviously, we are going to be taking into consideration photometrics as we've done with all of our subdivisions. We understand and know that with infill properties, you do not want light pollution or light emission off-site. So we'll obviously be working with engineers to create a photometric plan that will be conducive to the internal street and maintaining and lighting within the community. The next slide just is another picture of how that streetscape could look. I think it can be and will turn out to be quite a nice interior development, infill development. The last slide, if you can, before I lose my voice here, but is a picture of an existing development that we're just finishing up, and it's called Cherrywood Estates, and it's just up the street from where we're building now. And it's a good example of modern building techniques, but it's also an indication of how we treat sensitive areas, such as the wetland areas, which are associated with this property that we're making a proposal. But this particular property is adjoining and adjacent to a provincially significant wetland. So it's a good example of how we work with and understand how to treat sensitive areas like this, because this is turning out to be one, I believe, to be one of the premier sites in Fergus and some of the best examples of some beautifully developed properties within an infill scenario. I'd be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to boast about our elevator pitch and marketing pitch here with regards to the type of homes that we build, and we're not a builder that is known for building affordable housing, because affordable housing is housing that takes on many forms of, or many parts of the equation to make a home affordable. What I call our housing is a housing that is attainable. There's many costs associated with homes that both from of initial capital investment, but it's also taxation on a home, like through property taxes, but the last one that's really important for me is that we want to provide products, value-added products for a home that addresses operational costs for a home. And how will we do that? Well, our mechanical systems, our build processes, are the products that we put into our homes, the high performance aspect of what I call for a home that is all labeled, meaning that the homes meet certain criteria for energy efficiency. They're tested by a third party, and all of our homes are built to those minimum standards, whether it's an Energy Star label or whether it's any other label, but primarily for us, we offer net zero ready homes and then full-on net zero products. So net zero ready is a home that's built so energy efficient that the operational costs, or the cost for the operation of the home, can be offset by a solar load, but the home's built so energy efficient first and foremost. And we like to bring all of our product to this level of energy efficiency. They can't all be that way because of the cost and affordability, but then the fact that the home's operational costs are so good that it can also be attributed to being able to afford more of a mortgage. So this is where our homes can become what I consider attainable housing. So that's the aspect that we have. And then, of course, there's always the other aspects and virtues of building to this standard, being that the home's durability, longevity, the structural integrity, and I always believe that our homes are innovative and functional at the same time. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Val for to address some of the planning and her planning report, and I'll be able to take questions after. And of course, we have our technical staff here from the engineering department if there's any questions regarding technical matters. So thanks very much, everyone.
I'm just going to briefly just talk about the site and the development and the land use designations briefly, and then the applicable planning policies as well. Just briefly though. So the site is identified within the primary urban area and the built boundary of Fergus, and that's identified in the County of Wellington official plan. It's further identified in the built boundary and designated residential in the Township of Center Wellington official plan. As Mariana had said, the site is currently zoned residential. It's a R1A zone that typically just permits single detached dwellings. It's also zoned environmental protection with an environmental protection overlay, and that's according to the township zoning bylaw. So what the application we're proposing is a rezoning from the R1A residential zone to a more appropriate zone. And we were looking at a site-specific R3, but really we're just trying to recognize the various topologies that are being included, which includes you have singles, you have semis, and you have townhomes. So we are working closely with the township planning staff in trying to really craft that zoning bylaw to keep it as simple as possible, knowing it is unique, that we do have a lot of topology on the site. With respect to the environmental protection zone on the property, that would be refined based on the findings on the EIS. And again, we're working really closely. We will be with the township and the GRCA in refining that area based on the EIS. So that also we're working closely with the township. In terms of any site-specific provisions that we're looking for in the zone, they are just minor tweaks to interior and side yard setbacks. One of them would be a reduced rear yard. We are looking at about going to a 5.2. It's pretty typical for infill developments. Sometimes they go as low as 4.5 meters. It does still provide some amenity space for the residents, but being mindful that it is the unique situation that we are not directly impacting any adjacent neighbors in terms of privacy. So in terms of higher level planning, we do want to look at the new PPS 2024, and it really does encourage a range of housing options and densities. And this is to meet all the needs of the residents and allocating all types of residential intensification, especially in areas like this, where there's land, there's infrastructures, and the public service facilities are available. This is further highlighted in the county official plan as it relates to housing to promote densities, which efficiently, again, use servicing and are appropriate to the site conditions and existing patterns of development in the area. And specifically with residential intensification in primary urban lands, both the county and the township official plans encourage modest residential intensification when you're in a stable residential area and respecting the character of the area. This was carefully considered with the integration of this development with the surrounding neighborhood. Single detached units will front onto Side Road 19. This will maintain a very consistent streetscape along Side Road 19. The private road, as Steve discussed, will come between the single detached units and then lead to the development where there will be bungalow and two-story townhomes and semis. And again, respecting the scale of the surrounding neighborhoods. We did host a neighborhood meeting back in November 2023, and it was well attended with over 50 residents within the area and representatives from our consulting team, and as well as Stephen was there in attendance. We did get a lot of feedback, and at that time we had not yet acquired 73 Side Road 19, so it was a slightly different development, maybe with some reduced units. I think it was 13. But we really did listen to the residents, and after that, the acquisition of 73 Side Road came in, and we are able really to with the additional lands, really orient and position the units to really reduce any impacts to the adjacent property owners. And this really meant like the protection of privacy as well. So there's no units really directly impacting like the livable dwelling at all. So there's always privacy being maintained. Overall, it's my opinion, just based on the development, that it is being consistent with the policies of the PPS, and it conforms with the official plans of the county and the township. It's well integrated, it's compatible, and it supports redevelopment intensification, and it will contribute towards the township's population targets and meeting those as well. So again, like Steve said, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Valerie. I think at this time we're going to go to delegations. So I would like to invite up to the podium Bob Beer. It's Bob? Yes. Welcome, Bob. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Robert Beer. My wife Ingrid and I live at 31 Burnett Court. So we own the property which abuts the area that you would say was environmentally sensitive on this property. We go back and abut the western part of it at the back. We really have no problem with the concept of infilling this area. The proposed development in there, I don't really have an issue with. I think townhomes and duplexes and that are suitable for in there, better than the apartment buildings which had been floated for the area once upon a time. Our big problem is with the drainage from the area. I've gone over the environmental reports that were submitted along with the other reports in the application. Basically, what happens now is the drainage of groundwater from Victoria Crescent area goes into this property diagonally across the back of it in a ditch, which is during the wetter parts of the year is a flowing stream. That stream then flows across the back corner of our property into the area between the side of our property and the back of Black Street properties along there. That then is supposed to flow west, and this is actually mentioned several times in the reports, that it's supposed to flow west from there into the pond off Millage Lane and then into the rest of the watershed. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Right now, most of the rain that falls on that property is absorbed, since it's just meadow and trees and such. According to their numbers, 52% of the rain that falls on the area will fall on an impervious surface. 20% does that now, which means the amount of runoff from the property is going to be quite significant. The water from Victoria Crescent flows across in that ditch area, some of which evaporates, some of which soaks in before it ever gets to what's known in the application as the wetland area. That is slated to be redirected in a culvert around the exterior of the property to be emptied into the wetland. All of the drainage, except for the little bit against the Township Road 19, will all drain eventually into this drain the stormwater management pond at the back of the property, which won't hold a lot of water. I gather it's going to hold about a foot or something like that eventually, and the rest of it will be released a little more slowly into the wetland area. What their numbers show is right now the wetland gets 2,278 cubic meters of annual runoff, and it's expected that after this development, there would be 4,798 cubic meters of runoff annually, which is more than double the amount of water flowing into that area and beside us. I have a couple of gentlemen here who live on Elizabeth Street. They already have issues with wet basements, doubling or more than doubling the amount of water. Them any. In beside us, that water is supposed to flow, but when they redid our street and Nickel 19 and that whole area, in the curbs and the storm sewers and all that 10, 11 years ago, they built a sidewalk across from the end of our street to Black Street, and basically in doing so built a dam. So there is no water flow from the area beside us over towards Millage Lane at all. There is a culvert in that, which sits a good 2 feet above the level of the bottom. There would have to be a tremendous amount of water in there. Culvert over in there. I can't imagine that any water has ever gone through that culvert. I know a number of years ago, some of the folks on Black Street complained about the mosquito population in there because it's pretty extreme. And somebody from the town came and dumped a load of fill into the middle of that area. I don't know whether they thought the water was going to run up the ramp to the culvert or what, but all it did was push the water out to the sides, closer to the properties on either side. So I would like to think, I have no problem at all with the development, Steve. I think it's fine. I would just like to see the runoff addressed before we kind of get into the major construction in there. I think that it needs to be put down 3 feet from where it is now, and then all that fill needs to be taken out of there so it can actually flow if there gets to be excessive water into that area, because right now, as I said, it's just simply a dam. So that's really our main concern, is that we get a plan together for addressing the water runoff before we more than double it. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your presentation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this application? Okay. Stephen, would you want to respond to the delegation there?
Yeah, sure. I'll probably refer to our consultant here, Steve, to answer the technical of the question, but we are very respectful and understanding of what the needs are for the area, and it is something that we're planning and hoping that we'll be working with the municipality, because it does sound like there's some form of transgression in the past that is in an existing condition that should be repaired. There's no brainer on that one.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so we've received...
Sorry, could you, your name, please, and who are you with?
Steve Conway with TEI Consultants. We're the engineering consultant for the application. Sorry. Yes, we have received the comments from the residents. We did hear portions of these comments last November when we had the open house. Since then, as Val described, the plan kind of tweaked or changed a little bit. And with the new plan, we've done our final design and submitted that to the township and their peer review consultants for review. We've just recently started receiving the comments back. We've received comments from the GRCA yesterday. So they shared. And the news of the fill being placed a number of years ago is interesting. So we obviously, when we do a site like this, we design based on the site and where our site touches the wetland. We have more work to do to describe or to delineate how much water that wetland can assimilate, and we'll be working with the township to further delineate that wetland, do some additional work in there. And also, I understand just recently there's some conversations going to be had with township staff about that area that Mr. Beer is, I believe, that Mr. Beer was discussing where this additional fill might have been placed. And we're going to, we had reached out to the township over the course of the last year to get what information they had in that area. Most of the information we received was around that particular area, not right in that area. So we'll be talking to the township about maybe doing some additional surveying and confirming the elevations in there.
Thank you for that. Okay, now I'd like to offer an opportunity for council to ask questions or make some comments. Councillor Evoy.
Through you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Beer, for delegating today. We appreciate it. And, you know, this is what we like to see, this kind of respectful two-way communication. I've heard from other residents in the area, as have some of us just today, in fact, again. So we know it's an existing concern. For your response to be as strong and as open as willing to build those relationships with the existing residents, as well as with ourselves at Township, is exactly what I would like to see as the council representative in that area. So I'm really pleased and very positive, thinking that this is going to be something that we'll make sure we address, and I'll definitely be staying in touch with our residents to make sure that that does happen. But thanks for your great attitude around it.
Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Mayor Waters. I apologize, I don't have much of a voice. Can you tell me more about the tree preservation plan? That, I think it would be you, Mariana. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, through you. So we received a tree preservation plan and a landscape plan in conjunction with the site plan. There's also an environmental impact study that's been done. So the two sort of mesh, and one informs the other. So it does, in fact, identify the trees that are to be removed, and then the trees that need to be compensated, and those that will remain, and then appropriate tree protection measures. Still under review right now, so I don't have much more to comment on that in that aspect, unless the applicant's team has anything to comment on. Is there anything specific that you wanted to know?
Well, yeah, because we'll be removing trees, but are we planting them somewhere else? So you said there'll be a tree plan.
Yes.
A compensation plan. Yeah.
Councillor McDonald, thank you very much for the question. That's a great question, because it's always been a great pride that we do try. Probably as a developer, I am very sensitive to those things. I do the very best that I can to preserve and keep trees where they are. And a good example of that is in our Cherrywood Estates. There were some beautiful maple trees that were over 100 years old, and they're still there today. And I'm happy to say that, and we've worked around them. I do extensively work with our consultant from that performs the EIS, which was Boot and Associates. They're very good, and I know they act as a peer review on on behalf of the municipality. I had the privilege of having them work with me on this property, as they've done on other properties. And one of the first steps that we do is to take identification of trees that are of significance, and they determine that these trees, as I was mentioning before, which don't have the same significance, however, they are growing, they are tall, and the biggest concern is the trees at the front, fronting onto Sideroad 19. Unfortunately, we'll probably be taking most, if not all of them down, and that pains me a little bit to do that. However, they are, as I've known and become to know, they are a hazard to safety right now for existing conditions or existing homes, pedestrian sidewalk. These are trees that have matured to the point where they're probably at the tail end of their life expectancy and lifespan. So as much as I don't want to take the tree canopy down, I think it's inevitable that they should be taken down from a safety measure. But those are forming part of, so when our EIS consultant comes out, we identify those trees that are of significance, and then we have an equal compensation plan that is 2 to 1 for every tree that we take down of significance. And with our landscape plan and our compensation plan, we far in excess of the number of trees that are there, and we've always been taking an approach like that because it's important. From just an intrinsic value for what we do.
With regards to the trees being taken out, will that contribute to the drainage problem?
Will it contribute to it?
Yeah, because trees soak up a lot of water. So that's my concern as well.
That's really hard for me to answer, but I can only give you my subjective opinion on it. Yes, the root trees, the roots of the tree system that are there do absorb water, but so too will our new ones. In fact, maybe at a different rate, in the sense that they're young growing trees and they want to grow to be as tall as the ones that we took down. So being that the water table level is what it is, I expect that the tree growth on our site will be quick, fast, and replenishing the whole area before long. Yeah, yeah. And the stock of tree that we put in, of course, is of good quality. Yeah. Whereas these ones that are there now may not be.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. No, great questions.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. Thanks for your presentation. I do have a question just in terms of the general options and design. I've been reading a lot lately about like accessibility of homes and people being able to live in their homes longer. And you had like the bungalow style obviously is ideal for that. Is there other options in like the design? And this is honestly for my own knowledge here. Like if there was, I noticed there's still steps in, I'm assuming there's still steps into the garage. Like sometimes the building code doesn't hold like the greatest accessibility standard when it comes to like wheelchairs and movement, accessible movement in a home. Is there options available in this type of design where you can get a ramp into a home? Do you take into consideration like wider doorways into bathrooms and those kind of things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you're talking my world with regards to science and how the houses are put together, and aging in place is the term that you're referring to. And of course, it's a big important criteria with housing. It's very consumer specific to their needs. And so there's lots of different products that we've used in the past. And I did mention that we are considering ease of entry into bungalows, and the raised bungalow is the next best level of entry to the home because the stairs are broken up. It's amazing the number of people that you will come in to see a raised bungalow unit, and there's like a few stairs up to the main living area and some stairs down. Well, what's nice about that design is that the actual staircase length and landing are split, so that it's ease of transition to main living areas of the home. So that's a method. The other aspects, of course, with aging in place is, of course, your doorway entrances, also your turnaround circles within a bathroom, and then, of course, any hand bars, grab bars for assistance in it. But those are all specific to meet a lot of and do a lot of, but that's very specific. But caution to any builder in the marketing world, to build a home like that with a ramp and everything is not what people want to see. It's specific because it almost designates that home specifically to that, and that may be not in what they're envisioning for as much as it might be useful. We dare not build them standard inclusions like that, but aging in place is critically important, and there's lots of different little techniques that that you can utilize, but it's oftentimes consumer driven. No, great question.
Council, any other comments, questions? Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, and through you. And thank you, Steve, for the presentation and for your team for being here. I just have a comment that it's really great to see this type of infill project, and it looks really appropriate for the site. And it's kind of part of the equation of what we talked about at the breakfast this morning in terms of protecting farmland, is having these infill projects throughout our township. So appreciate that you came forward with this concept. And I also appreciate, as my colleagues have said, that you'll look into the drainage issues and the wetland and all of that. And I'm sure between you and township staff, that'll all get taken care of appropriately. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. With the infill property, I don't know whether I mentioned it, but the density target numbers, which everybody's familiar with, equated out to 20 units, people and jobs per hectare, which is quite a bit lower than probably some expectations to provincial policy standards. But with infill properties, it has to be really considered site specific for that, and you do the best you can. There's an economics there for us to get, of course, a number of units to make the project viable, and we seem to be comfortable with that. 22 units in total. Certainly, the infill site could have probably deserved more if we were really concentrating on building up. But that is once again another example of being sensitive to the area and R1A and of course the neighbors and customers. And it was nice to hear Mr. Beer's comment that he said he has no problem with the type of housing that we're doing. That's music to my ears as a developer.
Sorry, Steve, I just wanted to clarify. It's 19.6 units per hectare. Okay. If we add residents and jobs, it's probably likely around 45 to 50 people and jobs per hectare when we assign the people to the units. I think we normally take that from the DC bylaw, the numbers. So just to clarify. Okay, Council, any other comments, questions? Okay. Well, I think we've all done a very good job today. I'm glad to see everyone's going to maybe leave here with smiles on their faces. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and declare this meeting adjourned.